I want to talk about David. And David was at a place in his life that he didn't plan on being and that he really didn't want to be in. But sometimes those moments, God will use the place that you don't necessarily want to be in or places you didn't intend to go. Sometimes those are the places in life that you need the most. So David went from a place of, I'm right next to Saul. I'm next in line to be king. I'm anointed for this. I'm conquering. I'm winning. I've got people on my side, to a place of obscurity, a place that's away, a place on the run, a place where he didn't want to be. And who did God put around him? Not the greatest warriors of that time, not the greatest men out of Saul's army. No, who did he put around him? Men who were indebted, who were discontented, people who were frustrated with life became the people around David. See, the cave of Adullam wasn't where David wanted to be, but it's where David needed to be. There's a few things that we can discover about this. Number one, we can discover that the fulfillment of God's promises in your life, the fulfillment of God's promises in your life are not yours to fulfill. The things that God's promised for you and the things that God's put on your heart to do, it's not for you to say, oh, thanks God, now I'm going to figure out how to do this. And now I'm going to make my own path and my own way. No, it's God's. It's something He's given you and something He's planned for you. Even Proverbs talks about it. It says a man's going to make his plans, but God's going to direct his steps. So don't be discouraged if the steps that's been directing you are places where you didn't intend to go, or maybe a place that you're frustrated to be in, or a place that's in obscurity and not where you thought you would be. Don't get discouraged by that, because God does make His plans and His promises are true and will be fulfilled. And the things that He puts on your heart to do, He will make provision for you to do it. But don't be discouraged because you're not seeing it right now. See, the promises that come from God, they're God's to begin with, and they're His to fulfill in His due time. But there in the cave of Adullam, there in the place of obscurity, that's the place when we discover that promise that God's made, the plans and the things that He's put on your heart to do, they're really not about you, but they're about Him, and so you can trust Him with it. And David discovered that in the cave. The second thing is there in the cave, we can discover, and David discovered, that there's specific people that God placed in his life for a reason. That He put people who were indebted and discontented. He put men in David's life for a reason that these men David could have rejected at the door. David could have said, you know what? I'm running for my life. I'm not where I want to be. I'm going to go ahead and give up. I'm just going to be on my own. I don't need you and I don't want you. Be careful to who you're saying I don't need and I don't want in your life. Look around for a minute and realize that you might be in a place in your life where God has put specific people in your life for a reason. And just because those people might be indebted and discontented and frustrated in life, just because those people may not, you didn't imagine it to go this way, and you thought you would be in a different place, but here you are, and God has put people around you for a reason to use you to do ministry in their life, to help build up, because here's what happened. Here was the end of the story that David didn't know about yet. The 400 men that were placed around him that were indebted and discontented in life end up being the 400 men that were the strongest part of his army in the future. These 400 men did things that other soldiers never accomplished. There were men within these 400 men that defeated giants that even David didn't go and defeat. They defeated giants. These men were doing things, they were even known as history as some of the greatest warriors of all time. But these were men that in one moment in their life were frustrated, in debt, and discontented with life. At one point in their life, there was no looking up, and the best thing they had going was in hiding with David in a cave. 3, we discover that God is our refuge. And so there's actually some of the Psalms that were written And some of your Bibles will even say it, that this was written, it'll say, during the cave season of David's life, or a cave session. It'll say things like that in the heading of your Bibles as you go through the Psalms. And so there's several Psalms that David wrote while he was in the cave. And so I want to give you just a glimpse into that. So one of the things that he wrote was in Psalms 142, verse 5. When he was in the cave, he says, "Then I pray to you, O Lord, and I say, you are my place of refuge. You are all I really want in life." In the cave, these are David's words. And so in the cave, we can discover that God really is our refuge. He really is the one that we need. And David came to a place to saying, God, you're really the only one that I want in this life. So you might be in a place that you don't want to be right now, but it might very well be the place that you need to be. Because if it's a place bringing you to a point to where you're saying, you know what, God, you're the only one that I want in life, then that's a pretty good place to be in. If you're in a place in this life where you've not only said that for yourself, but you've said that for your family too, to say, man, out of all the things that we could accomplish as a family, out of all the ways that I could raise my kids, when you come to a place to say where you've been frustrated or discontented enough to say, you know what, when it comes down to it, the most important thing for my family is to find refuge in God. And David, in the moment in the cave, had to come to that resolve. Had to come to the resolve to say, in this moment where I'm running for my life, in this moment where I have every reason to not trust you, God, and to feel like that God had abandoned me and had led me to a place, it was like God made this big promise to David and then took it back. It's like God gave him this big vision and saying, you're promised to be king and you're going to be successful. And he saw a little bit of that. And then it was like God said, never mind, I'm going to take it back from you, David. David could have gone down that path. He could have got cynical about God. He could have came to a way to where he completely rejected God. He had all the reasons and all the excuses that we would give ourselves to be done with God. He had all of those reasons to be done with God. I really want you to think about that for a second. If you're giving yourself excuses and reasons today, if you're giving yourself reasons to be done with God, and you have a list of all of these reasons of where this is how God's failed me, and this is why I should give up on Him, and this is why I shouldn't pursue Him anymore, this is why following Jesus is too hard. If you have all of those reasons, David had all of those reasons too, but he came to resolve to say, you know what? You're going to guide me along the best path. It's the same word for path that we've read before. The pathway is a place that's already been treaded. It's a place that He's already been, and so He can be trusted with it.